Trước khi bắt đầu, nếu bạn đang tìm kiếm sách để học IELTS hiệu quả, thì đây là những cuốn sách chúng mình khuyên dùng. Nó có thể giúp bạn đạt điểm IELTS từ 7.0 tới 8.0. Bạn hãy xem ở phần giỏ hàng trong kênh nhé. Cảm ơn bạn đã ủng hộ kênh.
Part 1. You will hear a school principal talking to a teacher who is going to organize an art competition.
Hi, John.
Hi, Wendy. Thanks for coming to discuss the school art competition. I know this is your first year organising it.
Well, I've got some ideas, but I'd appreciate some help with arrangements.
OK. We usually divide the competition into age groups. The first age group is junior students.
I'll just note that down.
Last year, we went with a theme of family. That worked very well.
Yes, something simple is best for young children, I think. How about animals this year?
Sounds good. And for the type of art, last year children in the junior age group created a drawing. Shall we stick with that?
Yes. And for the prize, I heard last year we gave cinema tickets to the winner. Is that right?
Yes. But, you know, it might be nice to give the winners tickets to the zoo this time.
Good idea.
OK.
Finally, for the senior students, we also have to think of a theme. I've got a couple of ideas. One is the future.
I'm not quite sure how students might approach that theme. It could be tricky.
My other idea was the city. What do you think?
Good. Students could get some really interesting images with that theme.
And for the type of art, I think a photograph would work well.
Great idea. And as a prize, one of our sponsors is willing to donate a voucher that the winner can spend on travel.
Fantastic. They can find inspiration for their next artworks.
Now, let's discuss some further details of the competition.
Sure. First of all, the deadline for submitting artwork. We want to award the prizes on May the 25th.
Last year we needed a week to judge the winners and finalise arrangements for the awards night. How about if entrants submit their artwork by May the 18th?
Sure. I'll just note that down. Where should they submit their artworks? At the office?
Actually, there's more space at the library. So let's ask students to take their art there.
OK. In terms of judging the competition, what did you do last year?
We used an excellent local artist. We should try and use her again this year. Her name is Rebecca Lee.
OK. Is that L-E-E?
No, it's Leigh.
Right. I guess I should also note down her number so that I can get in contact with her after we finalise the rest of the competition details.
Sure. I've got her number here. Are you ready? It's 0407 625 4633.
Got it. After the judging, where are we going to display the artworks? How about we book the Bridge Street Gallery? It's a beautiful old building.
It is. So can you go ahead and book it?
Yes. And do you think we should also publish the artworks in the school magazine?
Yes, definitely. I think the winning students would be delighted to see that.
Great. Now, in terms of the art exhibition of the students' work, should we make it a morning event and follow it up with a special lunch or afternoon tea for parents?
I was thinking a late afternoon event might be better so that parents can attend after work. After the exhibition, we could put on a dinner. What do you think?
Yes, that could be nice. Now, I wanted...
Section 2. You will hear an Arts Center director giving information to a group of people attending an arts weekend.
Welcome to Grampic Arts Campus for our annual residential arts weekend. I'm Bob Grain, director of the programme. It's a large campus. It's quite easy to get lost, so I'm going to give you a quick overview of the most important places here. Right, I'm glad you all found your way here to reception. First, a word about parking. We do have a free temporary car park here. And for those of you coming by bike, the bike sheds aren't far from reception. You'll see them on your left as you walk down South Lane towards the residential rooms. Now, dinner is in the dining room at 7:30. If you need something to eat now, the snack shop is still open. The quickest way to get there is to leave here, go straight through the office, they won't mind, the ornamental ponds in front of you, and the snack shop is the building on your left. The fitness facilities are even better this year. We've outgrown the old fitness rooms, which were next to the office. To find the new fitness rooms from here, walk up to North Road. They're at the end in the last block next to the dining room. Now, your bedrooms are quite near. You can see the single rooms in the tall block to the far left of us across South Lane. Couples and families are in our family rooms, right next door to them. I'm afraid there aren't any TVs in the rooms. We ask you to keep the noise down, please. We have a TV room. You can probably see it from here. It's right opposite us in the big red building. But there are gaps in our timetables for some extra options. You may have this information in your brochure, but there have been some changes. Firstly, the drama option. I'm afraid our theatre and practice rooms here are being refurbished and are out of use. We decided against using our sports hall, and instead we're going to use our lecture rooms, which we've converted into a theatre for the weekend. There are also changes to the photography option. This year, this option isn't open to everyone. We decided for practical reasons to reserve it for beginners with no previous experience. Let me remind you that you don't need any special equipment. That's provided. The tutors have said that unfortunately they can't accept parents with children because that proved too disruptive last time. But if you're over 18, that's fine. On to the writing option. Previous courses looked at starting your novel. This year, we wondered about focusing on the techniques of writing different types of poetry. However, as a result of many requests, we've decided the workshop will concentrate on helping each participant write one or more short stories. Poetry may be some future time. Now, music. The brochure says you'll go to a concert. That's a misprint. Instead, you'll be writing and putting on your own performance, a concert for yourselves. Unfortunately, the singing tutor is ill. It's too late to replace her, so we've had to cancel singing lessons. Apologies for that. Finally, the creche. This is available for all families on the programme, and there are still some places left. I'm sure you'll be pleased to know that the charge for this hasn't increased since last year. Lunch is included, but of course parents are welcome to collect their children and spend the lunch break with them. May I remind you that any fees for this service must be settled in full at the end of the last day. So, has anybody got any questions?
Section 3.
Hi, Francis. Sam. So, how did you go with applying the different theoretical business tools for the report I asked you to write?
It was interesting and made us really focus on which tool was best to use when analysing a business.
Good. So, tell me what you found out.
We liked the theory behind pest analysis. That's political, economic, social and technological, although we're not sure if it was very applicable to our case. Some of the other groups had studies for which it worked really well, and they said it was easy to use. But I felt it focused too much on the big picture and was unsuitable for our company.
I agree. On the other hand, I enjoyed using the drill-down method. It was painstaking to do, and we seemed to be working on it for ages. But the results were worth waiting for.
Yes, I liked the way it eventually broke down complex problems.
Yes, I much preferred doing the PMI analysis. It was so straightforward to break down into its 3 components, plus, minus, and interesting implications. You just needed to brainstorm these components and then write them up. Fast and effective. And it didn't make your brain hurt doing it.
I agree, and you don't need any special training at all. Anyone can use it.
So, was there any tool that you thought was superior to the others?
In my opinion, the one tool that is critical to business, especially for larger companies, is Pareto analysis. If they applied Pareto analysis, they would see that by focusing on the critical 20% of their problems, they could generate 80% of the benefits. This would allow them to work faster, and it also reduces their workload. It's all about finding out what their basic problems are.
I agree with Francis about Pareto, but my favourite was the SWOT analysis. You know, looking at the company's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, as it can be used in so many different situations. It works in large and small companies, and even down to departmental level. It was great for our case study.
Yes, that's true.
OK, I've read your draft report, but can you tell me a bit more about that company you focused on?
Well, the company we used in our study was a manufacturing company who have relied on distributors to take their product to the end user. We did some analysis examining the possibility of them distributing their own products.
We initially looked at their strengths. The company, although it is small, is well known and has a very good reputation. The management are very committed to increasing the company profits, and they are confident this move would be successful.
Right. And the company has quite a lot of staff who have previously worked for distribution companies, so the knowledge is already there. That was something we didn't expect to find and is probably going to help them the most to achieve their goals.
I was quite impressed by some of the opportunities you detailed. I did think you missed something quite pertinent to their future growth, however.
What was that?
You didn't consider the potential for establishing an offshore division. You talked about the company negotiating better terms with its suppliers. Most of these are based abroad, and so if the company had a way of actually distributing the product there, this could be a tremendous opportunity and give them an edge over their competitors.
That's a good point. So, what did you think about the threats we identified?
I thought you did a good job. I was really pleased to see that you considered how the government's planned environmental policy could really affect the viability of this venture. With this law being introduced next year, they might need to find new ways of using their existing technology. It's easy to identify what your competitors are doing, but it's the bigger picture that often gets ignored. So, Sam, what did you learn from this assignment?
Heaps. I guess I hadn't realised how much time it takes to ensure your company survives and profits. It was great to study the different tools in books, but applying them in the real world was much harder than I thought. It was a great learning experience.
I'm glad I could make your assignment relevant. I'm basically happy with your report. You've got the format correct, with the necessary headings, etc., and you've got sufficient details under the different headings. Just remember to state whether or not you think the company should go ahead with the new venture. But you've done a good job so far.
Part 4. You will hear a lecture about a special type of sneezing.
Welcome to this lecture in the health sciences intended to inspire you and get you thinking about your research project. Today, I want to show you how even ordinary human behavior like sneezing, which normally happens when you get a cold, may be worth studying. Have you ever been walking outside when a bright shaft of sunlight hits you between the eyes? The reaction of some people is immediate. An unpleasant prickling in the nose, an increase in their breathing rate, and an uncontrollable watering of the eyes. Then, almost as quickly, they sneeze and gain relief. This may happen every time they go into the sun. This so-called photic or light sneeze is a reflex, which means it can't be controlled, and it's very common. Anything between 1 in 10 and 1 in 3 people might be affected. In fact, a sneeze is triggered by an irritation of some sort in the linings of the nostrils. The result is a cascade of reactions, beginning with the stimulation of the nerve endings all over the face and generating an explosive expulsion of air at up to 95 miles an hour, like an extremely localized personal hurricane. The body's coordination of such reactions is complicated and belongs to the subconscious control hardware that regulates other things, for example, tears in the eyes. People have been interested in the phenomenon of photic sneezing for thousands of years. The Greek philosopher Aristotle asked, "Why does the sun prompt us to sneeze, whereas the heat of a fire does not?" A partial answer came 2,000 years later, when the English philosopher Francis Bacon showed that his photic sneeze had nothing to do with heat. If he closed his eyes when going into the sun, he didn't sneeze even though the heat was still there. Henry Everett, a consultant psychiatrist at Johns Hopkins University Hospital in Baltimore, was the first to make a systematic attempt to understand the condition. Noting in 1964 that 30% of the staff employed in the medical department were photic sneezers, Everett did some further investigation. He found that while 80% of sneezers reported other sneezers among their relatives, only 20% of non-sneezers did. Now, there are factors that are certain indicators of a photic sneeze. First of all, those with the condition almost always sneeze a set number of times on exposure to light. In addition to this, the sneeze depends on a contrast in visible brightness, such as when the sun moves out from behind a cloud. And the sneezing fit won't be repeated immediately. The body needs time before it can be recharged. So if you go back into a darkened space and then immediately re-enter bright light, you will not sneeze again. Now on to possible applications of research in this area. The photic sneeze had long been overlooked because its effects are generally less than serious, although the government did once study it as a risk factor for pilots. Yet work on such a simple disorder might lead to important discoveries on more acute conditions such as migraine or epilepsy, which are also caused by cross wires in the nervous system. That is why I encourage you to select something similar for your first investigative medical project. It could be the beginning of something even more useful. Now let's talk about the project timetable.